A number of years ago, my youngest child made the bad decision to swallow 52 magnets and a screw. And as a mother, my brain short-circuited, and I thought, I don't know what to do. It was an incredibly stressful time. And one of the caregivers that he had at that time, I went to Prima Pediatrics, met Dr. Feldman, who had been taking care of this whole staff there, taking care of my kids. But Dr. Feldman came in, handled this so beautifully that I wasn't as stressed as I could have been. And I've often said my son, Jordan Katz, should change his name to Jordan Goats. Hello, Dr. Feldman. How are you?
I am just fine, and I clearly remember that day.
Your staff was so amazing, and truly, I was coming apart at the seams. I needed more help than anyone, and everyone there was kind, compassionate, capable, and you yourself treated it with such humor and again an appropriate bedside manner to make me stop climbing the walls, and I'm very grateful to you. So thank you for being here today to talk about Prima Pediatrics and not my kid and his 52 magnets.
Well, he was only one of many wonderful ingestions. I'm sure every pediatrician has their ingestion stories.
Yes.
Yours, of course, was one of our best ones, 52 magnets.
And a screw.
And a screw, of course. That was because he was a little screwed up, you know.
Yeah.
But he was one of many, and actually it was very interesting because after our experience together, that is when we began to notify toy manufacturers of the problem. We started reporting it, and as of now, magnets anything that has a magnet in it is marked as not available to anybody under age 10 and without parental supervision. Because it turns out of all the things a kid can swallow, and there are plenty of them.
They do manage to find things to swallow. I'm surprised. Not Brussels sprouts are not real high on that list of ingestibles.
No, unless, of course, you're my grandchildren. My grandchildren love Brussels sprouts. Don't ask. I have no idea why.
Wow, I like them. They're my friend.
Yes, but anyway, the magnets are one of the worst things to swallow because what can happen is they can stick together and actually cause a portion of the bowel to die, which is what's scary. But of course, we know how to handle that. But it's only important if you don't know what you're doing or if you're not aware that your child swallowed all of them.
Right.
So that's a problem. But I remember very well, prior to him, my favorite one before him was the child who swallowed 99 light bright bulbs.
Oh, my gosh.
And, of course, everybody who has a little kid knows that light bright are those little colored little bulbs, and they have a very characteristic shape. And the child came in with a tummy ache, and I felt something weird in her belly. I couldn't quite figure out what it was, so I sent her upstairs for an x-ray. The radiologist called me. He said, "You've got to come upstairs and take a look at this. I don't know what the heck this is, but it is something strange." And I came up and took one look at the x-ray and started laughing my head off because I recognized what they were. They were light bright bulbs.
Oh, my gosh.
We counted them. There were 99. She thought they were candies.
You know, they're pretty. They're slippery.
They looked just like hard candies.
Yeah, so down it went.
She swallowed them all down.
Kept waiting for them to taste better. And by 49, it's like, nope, I'm just going to keep going.
That's right. She swallowed all the ones that she had in the box.
Wow.
She got rid of them all. She didn't even need to be scoped. She managed to pass them all. She had a very, very interesting poops that week.
Not very light, not very bright, but by golly, they came out.
Yes, they did.
You have a long history. I'm sure you have seen just about everything, but new things keep coming down the pike, don't they? They just keep coming up with...
Absolutely. Every time I think I've seen everything, something new comes in. But it's fascinating because I have been privileged to be on the cutting edge of so many developments in medicine since I started, in medical school and then in residency. It's just like, and I could clearly recall the big moments of discovery. They just stand out in my mind. One of the most recent ones is something I've gotten very involved with, which is the concept of mitochondrial disorders. Now that sounds like really kind of far-fetched, and what the heck is that? Well, the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, and it's their job to take two energy molecules and turn them into 26.
Okay.
And it takes about 37 enzymes in the mitochondria and about another, several hundred to 1,000 that are in the nuclear portion of the cell to have this whole apparatus worked. If you looked at the picture of it, and I have one picture that's amazing looking, it looks like there's no way you could make head nor tail of it. It's so complex. It looks like a huge factory with 25,000 different parts. It's unbelievable. So in order for these things to work right, all the enzymes have to be in place. And when I was in training, we did learn about mitochondrial disorders, but those were the ones that they were very serious. And if a child had it, they were dead by a year or two. And that was it. And there were only a handful.
How frightening.
And, you hardly ever saw them. They were considered what we call zebras. Now we've learned, surprise, surprise, actually there's more than those. There are ones that are seen in adults. There are ones that are seen in kids. And it turns out that a lot of the, quotes, functional disorders, meaning, functional abdominal pain. The kid gets stomach aches all the time. And, kids with migraines and that kind of kids who are chronic fatigue syndrome, which a lot of the stuff that people have, especially in the medical profession, passed off as being, not really real, kind of in your head.
Where you take your kid in and it's like, oh, just, they just need rest. Or
they just need rest, or they just have to stop being so anxious, or, they just need a little bit more sleep. Well, how can they sleep if they're having a headache? Well, they have to just get more relaxed about things.
Right.
And you shouldn't nudge them too much. And, a parent comes home and says, what am I doing here? I mean, my God, I haven't nudged this child at all, and they're not budging off the couch.
Right. So here you have a child who there's obviously something wrong, but doctors are being dismissive, and you're finding that that's not the case. There's actually something.
There's actually something wrong.
Wow.
And what we're finding, and none of this information was even available 5 years ago.
None.
Until they started doing more discoveries, and the research has just exploded in the last 5 years.
What a time to be alive as a doctor after all you've seen, and to now
every year
something new. and how amazing that Prima Pediatrics is a part of this. We're going to talk about that after we take a break. We're going to go to traffic, but when we come back, I would love to learn more about the fact that Prima Pediatrics is getting involved with mitochondrial disorders. So in the studio with me right now, I have Dr. Rochelle Feldman, who's here from Prima Pediatrics. Now, I've had personal experience just as far as childcare. You couldn't get a better group of people, Dr. Feldman and her staff. But there's something new going on with Prima Pediatrics with mitochondrial disorders. And we talked a little bit about that before, that a lot of times you'd bring a child in and maybe they're headachy or they're lethargic, and doctors would say, oh, get more rest or do that. And there was no specifics. And you're saying that now they're starting to find there's an answer. There's a reason.
There is a reason on some of these. Sometimes it's just because they had a virus. However, the kid who's really having problems and it's lasting longer than 3 or 4 months, those kids need to be looked at, because it turns out they cannot produce enough energy because they're missing either part or all or some of the enzymes that are involved in the production of energy in the energy powerhouses in their cells called mitochondria. And it turns out that if they can't produce energy, these cells, these little organelles that are inside the cell, are supposed to take 2 energy molecules and make 26 of them. Well, if you don't have it all, then maybe you aren't going to make 26. You might only make 20. Or if you're really sick that day, 15, maybe even 10. Then you're going to be slugging because you don't have energy.
And it's just not right. It's like making a recipe for something and missing a few ingredients.
It's just like making a chocolate cake without sugar.
Right? And no matter what you do with that, it's not going to be right. So what can be done if you bring it and you find out?
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff. We have now just been able to start diagnosing these kids, finding out which stuff they're missing and replacing it. And we are having very significant results and very good success. We've recently had one of our youngsters who was really, was a top honor student on swim team, and she was just falling apart for no good reason.
Right.
And we found out she had one of these disorders, and we put her on some CoQ10 and some carnitine and a bunch of vitamins and antioxidants and a couple of other medications that actually push the enzymes to work better. And she just made junior varsity.
Now, we're talking about the treatment. Can I ask you, what is the testing process like for these kids?
Well, that's even cooler because the testing process does not require blood. Isn't
what?
That cool? Isn't that great?
Yeah, because that's the worst thing when you have to tell your kid, listen, we got to take blood. We got to take 10 vials of blood to,
Oh, I want your blood. No, I don't think so.
But
no, and for these kids, what they do is they spit into a little bucket. They give them a little thing, and they have to spit into this thing until it's filled to the top, which is about half a teaspoon.
Yeah.
And of course you can make it into a great contest. Who can
longest
and who can spit the farthest?
I want to play.
Right. I mean, the kids think it's hilarious. So you have them spit into these things, and we send the spit out, and they do the enzyme analysis on the spit.
Now, are there any? I'm just curious because I've never heard of that. Are there other things that could be tested through your saliva like that?
Well, there probably are. Right now, they can do all the mitochondrial sequencing that way. There are other tests now that we do that are for a chromosome analysis. In the old days, we used to take blood.
Right.
Now, you take a nice big cotton swab and you run it across the inside of your cheek, and you send that.
So now you bring your kid in, you take the test, and then the treatment, now that
it depends on which enzymes you're missing and which ones you are. And
right.
The one problem we're all running into right now, those of us who are involved in, those of us means me in the Santa Clarita Valley.
You are the person. This is good so far.
They're actually, I don't know any other pediatricians in Southern California, actually, who are handled. There's one gal in Fresno. There's a pediatric neurologist in San Diego. There are 2 geneticists in the entire Los Angeles County. Not too many folks.
So the treatment can vary depending on what the issue is, from relatively simple to probably very complex.
Complex, right, depending on how sick the kids are and so forth, because those kids who are really sick, who have big mutations, end up not being able to digest their food. They end up on parenteral nutrition through central lines. They end up having their guts taken out. It's not fun.
It's very serious.
It can be very serious, all the way down to the more mundane, that the kids just don't feel good and they don't function well.
Now let me ask you: Are there any studies being done about? Because we're talking pediatrics. Is this across the board with human beings that we?
Yes.
Oh,
it is.
Fascinating.
And the fascinating thing is that the mitochondrial DNA you get only from mommy. You can't get daddy's mitochondrial DNA. It only comes from mommy.
How selfish of him.
Yes. But the nuclear DNA, there are good hundreds of nuclear DNA genes that are for the mitochondria. Those you can get from either parent.
Unbelievable. How nice for Santa Clarita that Prima Pediatrics is on top of this, is testing, is treating, and it really is quite a coup for our valley. Thank you for being that person to help implement this and bring this.
I kind of got sucked into it and loved it. I mean, actually, it's the perfect dovetail of all the things, because I've always done special needs kids.
Right.
And this now is just like the perfect combination of things. So we have established the very first of its kind, I believe, anywhere, certainly in Southern California, more likely in the United States, of a multidisciplinary mitochondrial disease clinic. So it's myself, geneticist, gastroenterologist. We're getting a cardiologist involved. There's going to be a neurologist, the whole crew. It's going to be like a bunch of specialties together, all of us putting our heads together to figure out the best care and treatment for these kids.
How rewarding to be on top of that and to get results and to send your ultimate goal, to send the patients out feeling better. If you would like to learn more about Dr. Rochelle Feldman and the Mitochondrial Disorder Clinic, you can visit primapediatrics.net and find out what else again, a wonderful facility. I'm so grateful you're in the Valley, Dr. Feldman.
Thank you. Of course, that's not the only thing we do. That just happens to be one of our newest.
That's one of the newest, but you do everything that you could possibly think of. If you have a kid, and you can do it all. Thank you so much for being here today. It was wonderful to speak with you.